Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options and Play video update. Uh, it's going to be an interesting week of earnings. This past week was interesting. The market has just thrown so many like wrenches in the plans of bulls, right? And we've seen some really dramatic moves on both names that are reporting and names that aren't reporting. So with volatility higher, it could be a a busy few days for those companies that are scheduled. All right, so Monday before the open, nothing is scheduled actually. After the close on Monday, we got a couple software names which have been kind of front and center in terms of like stock volatility this week. Coop is priced in about 21 points. I mean, it's really gonna be interesting to see how high growth software is treated this coming week because it was rough week for that sector. Coop's at a 52-week low. I mean, you can see it just been straight down. It does seem to have room in either direction, but it just isn't always a consistent mover around earnings. Occasionally, though, can see a bigger swing. Option pricing is not cheap, but it might leave some room considering how volatile the group has been lately. Maybe. Um, so MongoDB, the other big one, it's priced in about 63 to 64. Had a just a gigantic move last quarter, and in my opinion, it's kind of hard to see a repeat of that with the current environment. Just all this like risk off stocks are really like turning south off their highs fast. I imagine the numbers are gonna be pretty solid considering how strong last quarter was, but options at like 63, 64. It's just hard to have conviction on a move of that magnitude, in my opinion. So I'm probably going to avoid it for earnings, but maybe keep an eye on it right after the numbers come out. For the open on Tuesday, AutoZone, I mean, I don't trade this anymore. It's way too thin. It used to be a decent earnings mover a few years ago, though, but I mean, lately it's just options don't do any volume, stock doesn't do any volume, so I'm not going to be in that one. After the close on Tuesday, a couple names. So Chargepoint, this is the EV charging name, pricing about 275. I thought it was looking pretty solid recently when it was basing above 25, but then now it's breaking down. Had a strong beat and raise in September, and that's here. Given all that back, I mean, there are some tailwinds with the infrastructure bill, so maybe I'm a little bit more bullish biased, but anything time-wise, I mean, I feel like it's going to be more like weeks versus days because I mean, it's still just like a challenging environment with the overall market. So um, probably more of like a swing focus than like an earnings, like quick earnings flip, in my opinion. Sentinel One, so new IPO, newish IPO, software name, pricing about 9.5 points. Those are monthly options. High priced, high growth software stock. You can see how sharply it's rolled off its high. Um, it didn't actually do much on its first report as a public company in September. Um, the numbers were solid, just didn't the stock didn't do a whole lot. So it's kind of hard to say what to expect this coming week. And unless software really stabilizes, I mean, it's like this type of setup could be a little bit more challenging. So more wait and see. Stitch Fix. So about 575 is what's priced in here. Pretty consistent move around earnings. Typically a big mover too. It's been crushed lately. You can see how far this has fallen off its high. So it's just been crushed. Seems like it could be a mover again. I mean, it's definitely not as tight of a setup though. And I mean, premium wise, I mean, any strategy I would look at would probably revolve around getting risk down, just because the options are definitely elevated at 575. I mean, that's basically like a 20% move is what's expected. Before they open on Wednesday, a couple like staple type names: Campbell Soup, which is priced in 225, and the other one's United Natural Foods, which is priced in about 7.5. Those are monthly options. They're not my favorite group to trade. UNFI did have a huge rally on earnings in September, so of the two, maybe that one is one I look at, but I'm honestly not sure I'm going to do anything with either of them. After the close on Wednesday, a couple big ones. GameStop, about 28, 29 points. What's priced in? Earnings that they haven't been kind to GME each quarter this year. So with the chart showing some signs of weakness, it could be set up for lower prices. Option pricing is definitely elevated. So I guess unless you have like a ton of conviction on it, I mean, it might be something that you want to wait until like right after earnings, especially if it doesn't have a big gap. But I mean, to me, like a couple quarters this year, it got hit awfully hard, and it's below trend support right now. So it does seem susceptible to the downside. Restoration Hardware, another big expected move here. Priced in about 65, 67 points, somewhere in that range. It's interesting because it started to leak lower out of its monthly range, and historically, it's had some really big moves on earnings. Um, and with the way retail was in this quarter, it could be a decent volatility strategy candidate, even with the high option pricing, because it does seem to have room in either direction. UiPath, so about 7.5 points. What's priced in? Those are monthly options, though. Another higher price software stock struggling recently. It was hit really hard on earnings in September. That was this gap. Hasn't recovered. I mean, even paying for monthly options, maybe it does seem like pricing might leave a little room. Maybe. So it could be like a spec volatility strategy candidate later in the week, depending on how the market's acting. Before the open on Thursday, Sienna. It's kind of an interesting setup. Pricing about 5 points. It's been in a tight flex. When I scroll out, you can see it's been a tight flag right at the top of multi-year resistance. And historically, there's been some big moves on earnings too. Last quarter was mixed, so it didn't move much. But I mean, there's been quarters in the past where it's really been a big mover. Um, Coiled pattern. I mean, I feel like it sets up pretty well for a move either way. After the close on Thursday, a few big names. So Broadcom, big semi, priced in about 28 and a half points. Um, the groups acted well. Broadcom doesn't move as much on earnings as it once did, though. So it's kind of tough to lay out the money for options on this. It looks good, and if the numbers are good and it can hang around, maybe it's something I'll look at for like a swing trade post earnings. Costco, about 23 points is what's expected. It gives monthly sales numbers, so that means earnings tend to be a little bit less volatile. Their most recent comp this week, it was actually slightly disappointing. And after such a huge run, the chart does look a little vulnerable. I'll see where it is later in the week, but it could be something I look at maybe for like a speculative bearish idea, actually. Lulu, another big name. About 40 to 41 points, so it's priced in. Big retail report. Had a really big move after last quarter's beat and raise. It's been hanging around 450, or was hanging around 450 until today. Um, I'm not sure I'd be able to get risk down to a level that could work on this, even though I think it might move, so I might have to avoid it. I thought it could have potentially run ahead of earnings, but I mean that would revolve around the market stabilizing, and that's still up in the air. And then lastly is Chewy's. So 10 points is what's priced in. Last quarter was the first in many that it actually rewarded option players. Before that, it just was not a big move around earnings. But the stock has been lagging like a lot of other e-com names, and it does seem susceptible to me, like technically, especially because last quarter wasn't all that great, and the stock got hit, and now it's like hovering right at the bottom of monthly support. So it does seem pretty susceptible on the downside. I'm not sure I'll play it. I don't trade this one very often, but it could be like a late in the week speculative bearish idea, actually. And then Friday before the open, there's really nothing. So that's it. But you can see, I mean, some big names, definitely some big priced in moves. So I mean, if nothing else, we could see some big swings this coming week on earnings. So should be a busy one. All right. So if you like this video and you're looking for more information about trading earnings or trading events with options, please follow up with the link in the description of the video for more information on options to play. Have a great night. Stay well, or have a great weekend. Stay well, and I will talk to you on Monday.